This is so relaxing.
Hello friends, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. In this video we're gonna talk about the Elektron DIGITAKT, which is this super powerful sampler and MIDI controller. Which buttons make this, check it out, this lovely noise. I could do an AMSR with this. By the way, this won't be a full comprehensive review. If you want a full review with all the functions, just check the mega tutorial by Cuckoo. He goes through every function of the DIGITAKT. This will be more a review of the functions that I like more and of the downsides that I think it's important to know before buying this. Then we'll take a look at some of my projects so you can see what kind of sound you could achieve with this machine. Some of the sound you could achieve, of course. Without further ado, let's get started. So the first pro of this machine is the control that you have over samples. If you go to the source page, there are different parameters that you can control, like the starting point of the sample, the length, the loop length. You can adjust the tuning of the sample. You also have a bit reduction effect. And then here you have the playback mode, which you can use to switch between a forward mode, reverse mode, or reverse loop or forward loop. Among all the things that you can use the loop playback for, one of the coolest is to apply it to an oscillator waveform. If you go to samples and then factory, toolbox, oscillators, you have a lot of different oscillators impulses. For example, on my audio track 3, I loaded a triangle wave, so I just have one cycle. So if I play in forward mode, I just hear a click. But if I go to source and change from forward playback to forward loop playback, now I have a sound. The second thing that I really like is this amp section here, where you can adjust the attack, the hold or sustain, and the release of the amp of the sample. If you go with the hold time all the way up, you can see a note symbol appear. So it means that the sound will stay, the sound will keep going as long as you keep the button pressed. What I usually like to do is to set the hold time to 0 and adjust the release time in order to get really short and percussive sound, which is great for the style that I like. Then you have here the delay and reverb sends, so you can choose how much effect you will have on this audio track. For example, then you have the pan, volume, and overdrive. Then we have the filter page. On the filter page you can choose between two different kind of filters. You have the high pass and the low pass, and you can adjust the frequency cutoff, the resonance, and the envelope for the filter, which has a attack time, decay time, sustain time, and release time. With this knob you kind of choose the amount of filter, the amount of envelope that you want to apply to the filter, or the cutoff ending point. I don't, it's hard to understand, but you go by ear, so you don't need to know all the technical things. Okay, then we have what Elektron is known for, which is, it's one of the main features of Elektron, and it's the LFO. LFO on Elektron devices is really powerful because you can assign it to a lot of parameters like tuning, playback mode, bit reduction. Sample slot is really cool because it changes the sample which is played on the steps through an LFO, so this is really cool and creative. Also random, a little bit random, also, which is really cool. Then you can apply the LFO to the filter parameters or to the amp parameters. You have also a lot of other parameters that you can adjust, like the waveform, the starting phase, the mode, speed, depth. Depth is basically the amount of modulation given by the LFO. So if you want just a tiny little modulation, for example on the pitch, on the tuning, so this is really intense, but you can have just a little bit to create like a sort of vibrato. okay? And that's for the LFO. LFO is really cool because, as you know, in Microhouse, we really like to have things that happens randomly. So applying an LFO on the filter with a long timing or with a noise waveform will allow you to achieve random things. Now let's take a look at this part of the Digitakt. Here we have 8 audio tracks where you can load the samples and 8 MIDI tracks that you can use to control MIDI machines and other things, or the computer. You can do a lot of things with the MIDI tracks, but focusing on the audio tracks, you may say that 8 audio tracks are not enough to create a song, and this is true, I agree. They could have done 16, or they could have made switchable tracks between audio tracks and MIDI tracks. I don't know if this is even possible, so I won't say anything more. But Digitakt is featured with something that expands a lot the power of this machine. In fact, if you go to the sequencer mode, to the sequencer mode, and I write down a pattern just with 4 kicks, Digitakt allows me to change for every step the sample and the set of parameters that I'm using. So for example, if this kick I want to change with another sample, I keep the step pressed, and now it's a snare. All the parameters can be changed. So if I go to amp, I can make it really short, I can put some delay, I can put some reverb, and this is just on this step. So the other one keep the default settings, and this step is modified. In fact, as you can see, it flashes. And if you keep it pressed, you can see some of the parameters are highlighted, and those ones are the ones that I modified from the default settings. So this is really cool. You can actually change every step of every audio track. So this incredibly increases the possibilities that you have on your sequence. The 6th feature that I really like about the Digitakt is the Controll All function. If you press track and you change a parameter, this will be changed for every audio track. So let's suppose you're in the kick and you move the release time by 10 points. The release time will be moved by 10 points on all the other audio tracks. I really like to apply it to the release time or to the filter in order to create really percussive sound. For example, let's consider this loop. I can shorten the untime for all the audio tracks, or I can assign more delay to all the audio tracks, or a little bit of reverb. I like to use this function to create really short percussive sounds loop, which are great in Microhouse. Try it out. Last but not least, Digitakt has the Overbridge function, which is an incredible feature that allows you to connect the Digitakt to your computer via USB and use it as an audio interface. So when you have your song made, you can decide to record every single audio track to your computer in multi-track, so on separate channels. So then you have complete control over the mixing of the tracks. You can apply EQs, compression to every track because you can record them separately. Also, you can record the master channel, so you have 2 channels from the master, for the master 1 and 2, and from 3 to 10 they are the single tracks channels. One thing that I'm not happy about is the fact that delay and reverb are on the master channel. So that means that if you record the 8 tracks separately, they arrive in your computer dry because they don't go through the master channel, but they go just out of their channel. If you want to record the effects, you need to record the master channel, so all the tracks together, or you need to mute all the tracks and record just one through the master channel, then mute this and mute the second one. But this is a really long process and time consuming, so this is something that I'm not happy about, but that's what it is. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the cons of this machine. The first one, I just told you about it. It's the fact that delay and reverb are on the master channel, so you can't record them when you record in multi-tracks. The second con is, in my opinion, the most important, and it's the fact that this machine doesn't have any EQ. Neither on the 8 audio tracks nor in the master channel. This is a big problem, especially when you want to use it live or record your jam in an audio recorder like this and then maybe upload straight to your SoundCloud channel. This is a pain in the ass. In fact, most of the time samples are not sounding perfectly. You need to adjust some of the low frequencies, the middle range, something like that with EQ. Most of the time I use just EQs on my tracks, so this would be the most important thing. And you can't do it. The solution is to import in your DIGITAKT every time samples that have already been treated. But you know, you don't always know what you're going to do, and so maybe sometimes an EQ is not perfect for a certain track, so it depends from the track that you want to do. So this, in my opinion, is a big con for this machine. When I want to produce music on this, you will never make a complete track on this machine, so most of the times you're going to record every single track on your DAW and then you mix the tracks, you treat the sounds, and so this is less of a problem. But when you want to use it live or for jams, an EQ on the tracks would have been a really good feature. Last downside that I want to talk about is something that I think we have to accept due to the fact that this machine, it's really small, so you can't have a lot of buttons in such a small place. It regards those buttons that are used for many functions, in my opinion too many functions, because you have your audio tracks, then for every audio track you have its own sequencer. Here when you press the record button it opens up the sequencer, the step sequencer, so you switch on and off the steps. And then you have the chromatic keyboard, so if you want to try out things and play sub basses or melodic sounds, you try out things on your keyboard. But this is not so handy. If I consider, for example, the Arturia Beats Pro, you have those buttons which are your keyboard in the sequencers. Then you have all the sequencers buttons to switch on and off the steps, and then you have all the knobs, so when you switch on and off you can quickly change the notes, change the velocity and other stuff. Here you need to do all on this button, so maybe you just try out a sequence that you want to switch on and off the steps, but you switch all on with the default note, which is a C. So then you have for each step to go to trig and change the note, for example, to D and so on. And this is slow to do. Also, you don't have scales. If you don't know a lot of the music theory, you can't use scales. On the Arturia Beats Pro you have chromatic, you have major, minor. Here you have just the chromatic scale here. That's, to me, it's what is not good about this machine, but I mean, this part is really tied to the fact that this machine is really small. So let's look for some old project here. So these are the sounds that I loaded into the audio tracks. For example, this is the track, the Controll All function. Okay, you have the idea. Wow. Pattern number 5. Oh, this is really bad. Now let's go to another project. There's some cool one. Nope. Yes. No. Yes. Pattern 1. This is cool. For example, here I have applied a filter, LFO on the filter frequency, so you hear that it's changing. Something that I've learned with the DIGITAKT is that it's better to choose sounds that are non-conventional, so just look for the weird sounds, because the modulation capability that has this machine allows you to reach really creative results. So starting from sounds that you don't expect to be cool, to be good for your track, it's way more fun, and sometimes it happens in having something really cool. For example, all these sounds. Next project. Jam Fixer. I don't know why I gave this name. Nothing special. Oh, this is what gave life to my track Flanking Transmission, which is still unreleased. This is a FM02, which is a oscillator. So as you can see, I have my oscillator cycle here, which has been set to loop. And throughout the pattern, I modulate. You can see those flashing steps. It's because I'm modulating some parameters. Okay, so for example, here I change the amount of overdrive and also the hold time and the release time. You can hear some of the notes are longer, some other are shorter. Then I have this sound. You have some delay, some reverb, and a sample tuning, so also the tuning is going up and down, or left and right. Of course, after doing this on the DIGITAKT, I recorded this to the computer and I modified the bass line. For example, I applied a swing to the audio track. I also cut some parts, and there was a lot of post-processing after this, but I think this is quite normal for everything you do on the DIGITAKT. Okay, let's see something else. This is from my jam on YouTube. These tracks are really cuckoo inspired, I have to be honest. You just heard some of the experiments that I did with the DIGITAKT in the past months. Some of the sounds in my sample pack are made with the DIGITAKT, since it's a good way to achieve sounds that you can't or you would have a hard time to achieve in other ways. So for example, I really like to play with the delay time in real time, or to use the Control All button. That's the function. That's a really powerful function. The overall opinion I have is that DIGITAKT is a super powerful and creative machine. You need time to master it. It's a perfect machine for micro house, but you need time to master how to use it, and also you need time to come up with good ideas, because it takes a lot of knobs tweaking, button pressing, and trial and error. It's not so fast to create something which is really good. That's why I didn't do a jam from scratch so far. It's a challenge that I like to undertake, but for the moment, I felt like it would have took me like 2 hours of filming to come to something good, and I couldn't take 2 hours of your time for watching me pressing buttons. So I hope to get better in this. It's something that I want to do in the future. Thanks for watching the video. I'm pretty sure that some of you will ask for the DIGITAKT as a Christmas present, or if you're old like me, as a self-present, because at my age you need to buy your own things. Remember to like and subscribe if you're not subscribed yet, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys, ciao.